I remember your last name. Ryan, what your first name is?
Lester.
Oh, Lester. Okay. And you just pronounce it Alcumbrack or Alcumbrack?
Alcumbrack.
Alcumbrack.
It's just like it's spelled, really.
Okay. All right. We're talking today with Mr. Lester Alcumbrack of Kentwood, Michigan. The interviewer is James Smither of Grand Valley State University. Okay. Can you begin by telling us a little bit about your own background? For instance, where were you born?
I was born in Grand Rapids, and then when I was about 3 years old, we moved out to East Paris, the corner of 32nd and
Can you speak
East
a little bit
Paris
louder,
Road.
please?
I grew up there. We went to District Number 8 school, just a grade school, 8 grades in it, one teacher.
All right.
Which was, the school was about half a mile away from us.
Did you go on to high school from there?
I went to Godwin. My whole family, all the kids went to Godwin. I was the youngest one of 5. But we had to walk most of the time,
All right.
which was 5.5 miles.
Okay.
We'd usually get a ride with my dad when he was going to work, and he'd drop us off maybe at Division and 28th Street.
What kind of work did your father do?
He worked in a laundry, U.S. Laundry, and then they just changed the name to American Laundry. It's about the same thing. But and after I graduated, I worked on the farm for a while, helping different farmers with their harvest and picking beans and peas and
Now, when did you
strawberries.
graduate? In what year did you graduate from high school?
1939
All right.
from Godwin.
Okay. And so you were doing farm work and so forth for the next couple of years. Now, while you were kind of working and out of high school, were you paying any attention to what was going on in the world? I mean, did you know that there was a war in Europe and that kind of thing?
We weren't paying much attention to that. We were busy doing other things,
Right.
I guess.
Right.
But it didn't seem to matter to us too much.
And do you remember how you heard about Pearl Harbor?
Yes, definitely. I was, my wife and I, well, girlfriend then, were up to my sister's place up at Silver Lake. Their church had made calendars, and we were delivering calendars. She'd gone into one home, and we heard it on the car radio. So it was quite new.
All right. And when you heard that, did you figure that you were probably going to wind up in the Army?
I didn't really think about it too much, not at that time. But it was a little scary for
Right.
that you want to know when enlisted or?
Yeah. Well, yeah. Now, were you drafted or did you enlist?
I was drafted.
Okay. And when did you get your draft notice?
I didn't get it. I went in to sign up, and the girl at the desk said, I can't take you because you're in the next group to be drafted. So she said, it won't help you a bit. So
Okay.
I waited, and that was about it. A couple of weeks later, I was in, and I went down to Fort Custer.
All right. Now, when was that? 1942? About what month?
42, yes. But we went down to Custer and sworn in and all that.
Okay. Now, at Fort
fitness.
Custer, did they have you sort of take tests? Did they evaluate you, or did they just
Yes.
decide? So, what did you do there?
What did I do
What kind
there?
of tests were they giving you? Or
Written test, just more or less like you get in a school.
so aptitude tests,
Yes.
reading and math and things like that. Okay.
Spelling
And
and everything.
right. And then where did they send you from there?
From, we went to Custer, and then They sent us to Yuma, Arizona,
All right.
right in the middle of the desert.
Now, had you ever taken a cross-country trip before that?
No.
So what was that like for you? How did you get down there?
We went by train. It was a big, it was a long outfit. There were a lot, not just our outfit. But in fact, we weren't even assigned to a company at that time. But when they got out to Arizona, we stepped off in that train, and it looked like just a normal step, you know. The dirt was black as could be. But when you took off from the regular step on the train, you step in that, and it was just like powder. You went right up your pant legs.
Wow.
The thing of it was, we had our winter clothes on. Because we left here in September. It was a little cool, but when we got out there, it was in the hundreds.
Right.
And we were all sweaty, and that stuff went right up our
You're sweaty,
pant legs.
and you're dusty. Now, did you have drill sergeants already telling you what to do?
No,
Okay.
not then. After they split us up into 4 different companies. We were Company A. I don't know why, but A, B, C, and D. But we were right in one row when we got up into the mountains and the desert.
Right. Now, were you doing basic training in the Yuma then?
Yes.
Okay. What did that consist of? What did they make you do?
Well, it was mostly going on field hikes, and of course had to take a rifle training. And,
Right.
But I missed a lot of that because I was taken sick, and I went on sick call one morning, and I fell asleep. And when they woke me up, they took me in. He asked me what I was doing out there, because everybody else was gone. And it's a good thing he came along. He woke me up, and he said, "What are you doing here?" And I said, "Well, I'm waiting for sick call." He said, "Well, that's been over with for an hour or so." He said, "What's wrong with you?" And I said, "Well, I had the GI." He said, "Yes." And so he took me into the medic station there. They took my temperature. It was 104. So they rushed me right to the hospital, which was nothing but a tent with sideboards on the side of it. And they gave me intervention. I had passed out completely. I didn't know where I was or nothing.
Now, do you know what you had? What were you sick with?
I think it was from the water. I think that was, I got an infection from that.
All right. And how long were you laid up?
I was in the hospital for 49 days.
Wow. What did you do all that time?
Laid there. Eat candy bars. I gained a lot of weight in there, but 'cause I was more active, you know, when I was home there. But then the ward boy up there, he says, "Why don't you transfer into our outfit?" He said, "You don't know anybody back in your outfit, do you?" And I said, "No." I says, "The only one I know here is you." He said, "Well, it's a start." So he wanted me to transfer in there. Well, the commander of our company came up to see me, and I asked him about it. He says, "No, you're not going to transfer out."
Now, at this point, were you headed for regular infantry, or do you not know what you're going to do?
Well, we didn't know until we got through with the basic trainings. I didn't anyway. But when I got out of the hospital, the rest of them were all taking rifle training.
Right.
Tear a rifle apart, put it back together. But then they started, they had some trucks there, and we just drove them around, picked up garbage and that, and took it to the dump and that.
So how did you wind up driving trucks instead of taking apart rifles?
Well, that company did finally come into doing gasoline, but that was after we went to Arizona.
Right.
And they formed this company and we filled gas cans. Most of the guys were filling gas cans. There were about 20 of us that were truck drivers.
Okay.
And Patton was out there doing his training. And we'd take gas up to him, up to where they wanted it, and then take the empties back, and the guys at our outfit to fill them up again.
Yeah, because they've been doing some pretty big armored maneuvers and things out in the desert out around there, I guess.
Yes, they were then.
And so that's part of what you were doing.
I think that he was getting ready to go to Africa. So my grandson went out there. He was in just about the same place I was. He's in the Marines now. And he had about the same kind of deal, but he didn't, he wasn't in the gasoline supply of it.
All right. Well, now were you still based in Yuma while you were doing this? And you were learning how to do the gasoline stuff and all that? Okay. Well, how did that actually work? I mean, did they have big storage tanks or underground tanks?
They had, most of it would come in on big trucks, and then our outfit would pump it out of them and can it.
Okay. So you're filling like the 5 or 10 gallon?
5 gallon
Five
cans. 5 gallon cans.
Yeah.
And sometimes we had a tanker come in, a railroad tanker, come in and they'd unload that, and we'd disperse it from that.
All right. Now, how long did you stay down in Arizona?
We were there about 6 months.
All right.
Then we were sent to Florida, Fort Pierce, Florida. And we took amphibious training down there, which was not fun.
Well, now at this point, but you're now with a unit that's responsible for gas supplies and stuff like that?
Yeah.
So what did you do in the amphibious training? What were you doing?
What was I doing?
Yeah.
I was driving a truck.
Okay, but in terms of the amphibious part?
Oh, the amphibious?
Yeah.
We just trained there. We had to be able to swim 2 miles in the ocean.
Okay.
And we climbed up the side of a mock ship on the ropes and that with a full fuel pack.
Okay, and did you practice climbing down nets into landing craft, or did that?
No.
Okay.
We did finally. We went from this make-believe ship, and they'd take us out in boats, and then we had land and start all over again.
Okay.
We filled ammunition boxes with sand and loaded those into the ducks. You remember the ducks?
The ducks are the amphibious trucks.
Yes, that's on the go land and sea. You would load some stuff into that and go out in the ocean and come back.
Now, did you go down into the ducks yourself and sail around in them, or did you stay on the ship?
We weren't on the ship, we were on land.
Okay.
But we were filling those up, and then they'd take the duck around and go out into the ocean and come back.
Bring it back again.
Then we'd have to unload them and refill the boxes, which didn't make much sense to me.
Not usually. 'Cause if you're landing, then somebody's probably on a ship and has to get
That's
them.
right.
But you just had to do what they told you to do, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Now,
Follow orders.
Now, as you were going through the process of training and so forth, how did you find the discipline and that kind of thing? Did you have trouble kind of doing what you were told and fitting
No,
in? Or
not a bit.
were there other guys in your
I
unit
was-
who made trouble?
Not very many. They'd be, didn't want to follow the rules too well. But I think you get that in anything.
Yeah. And I suppose out in Arizona there wasn't maybe too much trouble to get into?
No, not really. We were supposed to go out and on bivouac, and some of the guys didn't like to dig the foxholes. And that, you know. I was one of them. I see a foxhole already built, and I walked up to it and looked in there. There was a rattlesnake. I said, "Sorry, I'll let you to be. I'll dig my own." But I knew enough to stay away from that. I didn't want any part of that thing.
Right. So that time, did you have to give up and dig your own foxhole?
Yeah.
No.
Dig it with a helmet and had a little shovel.
All right. Now, back at Fort Pierce. Now, what part of Florida was Fort Pierce in? What's it close to?
Down
Sort of Tampa or Miami
on
or
the,
Pensacola?
it was north of Miami,
Okay.
about 50 miles, I believe it is.
Okay. So north of Miami, but not as far up as Jacksonville or someplace like that.
It was about halfway between Jacksonville and Miami.
Okay. All right.
There's an island out there, and we were on the island.
Mm-hmm.
The bridge crossed.
Right.
No civilians could go in there.
Mm-hmm. So it was another place where you couldn't get into too much trouble.
And not unless you had a pass.
Now, how long
go
were
into
you?
town.
How long were you there?
Approximately 6 months, probably.
Okay. So it's sort of until late 1943, maybe.
Yeah.
All right. Now, from there, where did you go next?
Went up to Camp Pickett, Virginia.
Mm-hmm. And why were you there? Was that to get ready to ship out? or-
No, we took some more training, so you had, most of it was marching and that. But we had the infiltration course.
Now, what was that?
You climb up crawl up a hill on your hands and knees, and they had like landmines and that spotted around. You get too close to that, where they'd set one of those things off. Kind of scare you a little bit.
Yep.
It was to teach you to keep your head down. If you raise your head too far, well, you might hit one of those lines that going across,
Right.
and that would set the mine off. They had to pretty well find out.
So how did you do going through that course?
Pretty good. I had some go off quite close, but maybe that was somebody else set it off.
Right.
I don't know.
Okay.
But there are
Now-
about 10 of us that go up this hill at a time.
Now, what did that have to do with driving trucks or loading gas cans?
Nothing. That was just part of the training. That
Okay.
if you got caught, well, you'd know a little bit more about what to do, I think.
Right. Okay. Now, at this point, were you with a particular company of men that you had been training with for a long time now?
All the time.
Okay.
But I had my furlough from there. That was the only furlough I had. 14 days ship going back, trying to come back to Grand Rapids.
All right. Now, you'd had a girlfriend before you left. Were you still seeing her then when you went back on the
When
furlough?
I went back on the furlough, yes, I spent more time with her than I did at home.
And had you pretty much decided to get married yet, or were you kind of putting that off until later?
Well, before I went in the service, I asked her, well, we were walking the beach at Grand Haven, and I said, would you mind getting married before I went in the service? And she says, no. She says, and I had to take her father back, coming back to Grand Rapids, and he had to go to work, and I had to go to work. And on the way home, I asked him if it would be all right if we got married. He says, you're going into the Army, young man, and he says, I would rather you wouldn't. I said, your wish is my command. I didn't want to get on the wrong side of my in-laws
Right.
before getting married. So we waited.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sorry. It's, it was, well, she was faithful, I guess, because I got a letter from her almost every day.
Right. Now, were you pretty good about writing back?
I didn't write many letters, but they kept us busy enough so that we
Right.
didn't.
All right. Now, let's see. Let's kind of go back there to Virginia. You're at Fort Pickett. They're giving you the extra training. About how long were you there?
Probably about 2 months.
Okay.
Then
So-
we went up to Boston
Mhm.
and shipped out from Boston.
All right. Now, what
For
kind of
overseas.
ship did they put you on?
The one that we got on was an old gambling ship.
A gambling ship?
that the Evangeline
Mhm.
was named. It used to be used to go from Boston to New Orleans.
Mm-hmm.
That's as far as they went.
Right.
That
And they could
thing was-
gamble while they were offshore, basically? Was that
Yeah.
how it worked?
Yeah.
Okay.
That was it.
Yeah. Now, had they converted that into a troop ship by then?
Yes, they converted it, and it was a tub,
Mm-hmm.
not anything like the regular Navy ships.
Right.
But it was beautiful inside, all mahogany, dance floor in the middle of.
So some of that stuff was still there?
Oh yeah.
All right.
They
How many
didn't-
men did they have on the ship, do you think?
Probably 300-400.
Okay. And how tightly did they have you packed in?
Not bad.
Okay.
But
But how many bunks high did they have, for instance?
I think there were 3 high.
Okay. It's not one of these 6 or 8 high things
No,
that you
no,
get on
no,
some of the
no,
bigger
no,
ships.
No, it wasn't too bad
Now, what time of year were you sailing in?
in the winter.
All right.
Fall.
Okay, so kind of end of the year in 43 then?
Yeah, I think it was.
Yeah.
But anyway, they said that one night that we scraped sides with the the ship next to us.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't hear it, and I don't know. I had never found out proof of it.
Mhm.
It was in a big convoy of
Right.
ships, and they took the long way around. They went way up, and then we landed in Glasgow, Scotland.
Mm-hmm. Now, did you have any U-boat scares or things like that while you were going across?
No, but that's why we went north.
Mm-hmm. Like, I went around them.
That's what they figured, that they didn't think that they would go north farther.
Well, by this time, the Allies were pretty good at reading the German codes and things, and they often knew where the U-boats were or how many of them there were. And by this time, the U-boat dangers were not as bad. So they may well have been that they knew where the U-boats were and where they weren't, and they just sent you where they weren't.
But there was a big convoy. There were probably 20 ships in that thing.
Mm-hmm. And about how long did it take you to get across?
I know that thing's got it 14 days, something like that.
Well, not bad for a slower convoy. Now, what was the weather like while you were going across?
It was cold.
Okay, but was it rough or stormy or relatively quiet?
It must have been sort of quiet because I didn't get sick.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no sickness or anything. I don't know of anybody that was. I wouldn't say there wasn't. But
So you may have had a better trip than most, except that it was cold.
yes.
All right. Now, what happened when you got to Scotland?
We didn't stay there very long, maybe overnight. They put us on a train, and they took us all the way down to South Wales.
Mm-hmm.
That's at the other end, from one end of Scotland way down
Right.
to the other end. And that's where we stayed for quite a while. Not doing a heck of a lot, but
Yeah. What kind of accommodations did you have there? Where did they put you?
tents.
Oh,
We were tent hounds.
so you're in
We
tents
never- the
in
only
winter
place-
in Wales.
What's that?
You're in tents in the winter in Wales.
Yes.
Was it cold and wet?
It wasn't too cold there. It was wet.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like England.
Yep.
But the tents that they put up for us, they had those already up when we got there. They were raised up off the ground a little. But the paths going through them were just nothing but mud.
Right.
We had a couple of trucks there, and they went over and got some sand and dirt and stuff and made ourselves some paths down through there. So we wouldn't have to get, so we could walk without walking on cinders all the time.
And so, now did your unit have anything to do in Britain, or were you just waiting for the invasion at that point?
We were more or less waiting around doing stuff. When
What did you do all that time?
make these roads, fix it up for the next guys to come along, and so they could have a good time, I guess.
All right.
They couldn't have a good time in Wales anyway. There wasn't much there.
You weren't near any big towns or any place to go?
No, there's Grossinen was the first one that was anything at all. And then I can't think of the name of the other town, but it was a bigger town than it was on
Sort of Cardiff or Swansea or one of those places?
Swansea.
Okay.
Swansea was the one that they had passes to. They give us passes to those. I never went to Swansea, but they had a couple trucks. They'd load up a bunch for one of them, and then the other one went to Grossinen, wanted to go to.
Now, at the camp where you were, what other kind of units were around you? Were they other
Nothing.
transport units or just your company?
That was all that was there.
Okay. And about how many men were in your company?
I think there was 20, 30, 60, 68 or something like that.
So not a very big unit at
No,
all.
it
then.
was a small unit, real small.
Okay.
One of the smaller units around. But
Now, did things start to change or get more interesting as you got closer to D-Day? Or did things stay pretty much the same until you actually went over?
they sent us, after we were in Grossinen there, we went to Plymouth. And that's where the holding tank was there,
Right.
getting ready to be shipped out.
And how long did you spend in Plymouth?
Probably a week or two.
Just a week or two?
Yeah.
Okay.
So it was after the invasion was already made then. There was one of these duck outfits came back to where we were. And they had, I don't know, they had around 40 different ducks. And out of the 40, I think they said 14 of them made it. The rest of them, they lost.
Now, when D-Day actually happened, were you down in Plymouth or were you still in Wales?
We were in Plymouth.
Do you remember seeing planes going over or ships
Oh,
going out?
yes, we saw a lot of those going over, but they didn't drop any bombs on us or around us.
Well, there would have been mostly
German planes too.
You were seeing German planes. You weren't seeing the Allied planes going over to Normandy to make the attack?
No, they didn't. I think that was I think they waited until D-Day morning before they went in there. I don't know.
Okay. Now, when did you actually make the crossing over to France?
We landed in France D+13, I think.
Okay, so sort of middle of June then. Now, there was a really big storm in June that smashed up some of the harbor facilities and things. Had you gotten over there before the storm? 'Cause that's probably
I don't remember what storm.
Okay, that would have been the 23rd or 4th, so you probably would have been there by then. It wouldn't have been something that hit you while you were crossing or anything like that. Now, once you got there, what did you do?
Well, Actually, we got up on top of the hill off the beach,
Okay, so they would have landed you at Omaha Beach then?
Omaha
Yeah.
Beach, yes. Or there, in France, they had more hedgerows,
Mm-hmm.
wire fence in behind
Mm-hmm.
them. But when I happened to get up there, I drove my truck off from the
Mm-hmm.
landing barge,
Right.
which was an experience.
Did it come in on an LST, the big
Yeah.
ship with the doors that open in
Yeah.
front? Yeah.
They dropped down.
Well, a drop down, it would be an LCT maybe or something. There's a drop down door, and then there's the two doors that open up.
Yeah, well, this one dropped down.
Okay, yeah.
So
So it's regular, so a big landing craft. But, yeah.
We drove off from those and
Right. Did you drive into the water, or did they?
into the water.
Okay. Now, how deep was the water when you went in?
Well, probably 4 feet.
Okay.
But that raised as the ship got lighter too. You know, the ship come up and there was a bigger space to go down.
Mm-hmm.
But I was off before that, so it didn't matter with me.
Okay. So you didn't get swamped. You could
No.
drive up on the beach.
No. But we took, probably when we were in England, we had to seal all the grease fittings and that, and with this stuff. Then we spent a lot of time taking it off again.
Yeah.
But it was, that wasn't too bad.
Mm-hmm.
But
And then once you got the truck off and so forth, your unit kind of gets up off the beach.
we went up on the hill, and there was a big field up there.
Mm-hmm.
And our ordnance outfit set up a tent,
Mm-hmm.
and I couldn't use my tanker, so I backed that up next to the tent for the maintenance
Mm-hmm.
crews. And after they took St. Louis,
Mm-hmm.
then our outfits would go down to the beach and pick up a load of whatever and come back up and then deliver it.
Right.
The two of us on the truck,
Mm-hmm.
one at a time, of course, but so that truck was on the road
Mm-hmm.
48 hours a day.
Okay. So you're trading off with another driver.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, what was it like driving through Normandy at that point? Was it easy to do, hard to do? Was it crowded?
Well, there was sand down. It was a lot of sandy beach, but we didn't stay down there. We stayed up on top.
Yeah. But once you're driving around on the roads going back and forth up toward the front lines. Were the roads at that point pretty clear and easy to use, or was there a lot of traffic and stuff in the way?
Pardon me. It was. We didn't have too much problem. Some of them were sort of like just a track, but most of them were 2-lane.
Right. Now, at this point, were you carrying mostly fuel back and forth, or were you carrying all kinds of supplies?
It was food supplies mostly,
Mm-hmm.
but we didn't have to touch it. All we did drive it to wherever they said.
Right. Somebody else loaded it.
But we drove further after they had taken St. Louis.
Right.
That was the first big town that they had.
Mm-hmm.
But there wasn't anything there. There
wasn't much left of the place.
That's right.
Yeah. Now,
If you saw the sergeant, what was it, the movie?
oh, the Private Ryan movie, or
Sergeant, wasn't Sergeant York?
oh, Sergeant York was World War One.
Yeah, this was when they made a movie of it, and it was about him being in Germany. They couldn't find him, and it was more. It was quite true. A lot of the stuff that was in there, a lot of it brought back memories to me. I watched it, but I was telling her the other day that I was driving along one of the roads with the supplies And I was alone. I guess there was another truck ahead of me. Must have been, because I didn't know where I was going. But going up a road like that, and then we turned, and we turned again, and we made that second turn. Look, at about 100 yards maybe ahead, there was a cannon that had been knocked out. The barrel of that thing was aimed right smack dab in your face. Now, that scared the daylights out of me when I saw that thing. It just, it was disabled, but you didn't know it when you first saw it.
Right.
But you see that cannon facing you, that thing looked like it was that big, probably about that big.
Right.
But and that was right where the Siegfried line must have come across there, because some of the crossings like
those are
that.
defenses along the border there of Germany.
Yeah.
So that's jumped ahead a little bit. Let's get back a little bit. The Normandy fighting goes on for a couple of months, and after Saint-Lô falls toward the end of July, then the Americans start to finally push out of the hedgerow country, and they get out into the open, and then they move pretty quickly across northern France over to the German border. Now, what was that advance like for you? Did you have to make longer and longer runs back to bring up fuel and supplies, or what were you doing there in sort of August and September?
Well, they finally got the pipeline in off the beach, because they could get their gas in, and then we went back into the gas part of it, and then we were taking gas up front more.
Right.
And,
So the pipeline ran under the English Channel then?
in the channel.
Yeah. And where did you pick up?
Off the beach,
Right.
because they drove, had the tankers come up, and then they unload the tankers there.
Right.
But one of we got balled out because they thought that we were delivering water. Tank must have leaked or something, you know. And only the Air Corps got some of that stuff. 90% of it was water. It was a mixture of it. It didn't go too good. But we got blamed for it. It wasn't our fault.
So it came out of the pipeline as mostly water?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it must have happened when they took from their boat to the, fastened up the, I don't know how it did happen, but that would be my guess on it.
All right. Now, once you kind of get in sort of later in the year and they're getting closer to Germany, are you making a lot of trips back and forth across northern France all the way back to Normandy, or were there other places that you would use to start from then?
Oh, we didn't. Well, most of it was down to Normandy. The supplies were still coming in down there. Of course, it couldn't use rail, because they'd bomb those things out. In fact, one night when after we were up above the hill there was a German plane came in, and he dropped a blockbuster. That thing was huge, the hole that it made.
Yeah.
And I told you that I had my truck parked next to the ordnance thing. And I went out there in the morning, and there was a chunk of clay in the front of my truck. It was about that big around. I don't know how far down it had gone, but must have been a big thing to go down.
Right.
And that clay must have been dry and hard, just like cement, because we had driven our trucks right in front of my truck. It went down into that stuff, and it's still stuck out the ground about that far. We had 55-gallon, well, I guess it was bigger than that, probably a couple hundred gallons of a tank. Then we had a tarp around it for a shower. put put water up on that and let it heat up. That was the only heat that they had. But you had a warm shower, not a hot shower.
Right. Okay. Now, were you at least well fed? I mean, do you have enough food and that kind of supplies?
I had all the food I needed.
Yep. Yep. You're kind of in the right place for that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Now,
It was sometimes when a truck would go by and we look at underneath the canvas of it, all the stuff was covered. If we saw something in there that we thought we'd like peaches, canned peaches,
Right.
we'd take a couple couple bales of that and help ourselves.
right. Okay. Now, during this period, sort of the fall of '44 heading into winter, do you have a regular base? Is your base still back in Normandy, or do you have a more advanced base you work out of?
We go Normandy, we went north. We went to a channel outside of that came off from Normandy Beach there. There was a thing ran up there. We went in there, and they had another outfit that was gasoline supply too. But they had used that, and I think they wasted more gas than they put in tanks. Because our fellows went in there and were filling up cans, and the soil was so moist with the gasoline, the gas sitting right on top.
Right.
You could see the red.
Wasn't that kind of dangerous?
About that, yes, it was. But some of our fellows got lead poisoning from their shoes would rub on your legs
Right.
and that, you know. And,
Yeah.
I think 2 of them went back to England and lost their legs from the lead poisoning. So at least 2 of them. And some of them lost just one. And so it wasn't cute.
No, that wasn't so good. Now, did you eventually change and work out of a different place, or did you stay in Normandy the whole time, or did you go somewhere else?
We moved up further. As they moved forward, we moved forward too. So.
Now, did you go toward kind of northeastern France, or did you go into Belgium, or where did you wind up?
We stayed in France until we got into Germany.
Okay. Now, which armies or units were you supporting? Do you know? Was it sort of Third Army or Seventh Army?
Patton's.
Patton's, the Third Army.
Patton's. In fact, Patton was killed about 3 miles from where we were stationed.
Okay. Now, that's after the war in Germany.
That was after the war.
Right.
We were more occupational than anything then.
Yep.
That's when we transferred. Well, they did away with our outfit, really. We went into the refrigeration unit, and the fellows that were filling gas cans went into grave registration. So we just...
They kind of reassigned you, but again, that's sort of back at the end. Now,
Yeah.
during the war itself, when you advance across France, you go into Germany, was any part of it very dangerous for you, aside from...
For me, no.
No. Okay, so you were not in situations where people were shooting at you? Or
The worst part, like I say, was that big bomb that
Right.
went off. That was a scary thing.
Okay. How much were you able to observe just of what was going on or the progress being made? Or
Very little. Very little, because we were back too far.
Were you very much aware at all of what was actually happening or how the Army was doing?
Well, they kept us up pretty close to what was going on.
Right.
We were still on the beach, just off the beach. We were going up to our mess hall on the truck. When there was an emergency, just a little field for small planes reconnaissance, but not. And when we were going up to eat one day, there were two of them coming. One of them couldn't get his landing gear down all the way. He must have had other problem too. But he hit this, the metal, they had these metal sheets about that way, about 10 foot long. They clipped those together for a runway. And this plane hit that and just tailed around like that. But the one that was following him in, he didn't make it. He got caught on one of the trees, and we saw him burn up. And I tell you, you never want to see that.
No.
He was in his chute, and we were on our way up to eat. We turned around and went back. He couldn't do that.
Okay. Now, when you're in France, did you have much contact with the civilian population at all? Did you see many of the French people? And
Well, yeah, we talked with them, and I wasn't too enthused with the French. I thought they were dirty, and they their morals were about as low as you could get as far as I was concerned. They had the trains on the road, and 4 or 5 guys could stand there. Well, you'd be standing there going, and here comes a lady. She was right next to you. She lifted up her skirt, and that's not.
that's not what you were used to.
That's not for me. But, it's to me that was. And I got a chance to go up to just outside of France, Paris.
Paris, yeah.
We were sent up there to pick up empty cans, and with our truck, we weren't driving tankers then. They just had regular trucks, and we had this wire mesh going around the back end of the truck, so about 10 foot high, and they'd throw the cans in there, and we took them back to where they could be filled or checked out or whatever. But,
did you actually go into Paris, or did you just go outside?
No, just outside of Paris. But we did, later we went up there and just, I don't know, 3 or 4 of us went on a furlough or took a couple of days off and went up there. But I wasn't too enthused about that either.
Okay. Now,
I guess I was too fussy. We went from Mannheim and down into France, and got on a ship there, a Victory ship, I believe it was. Victory, or we had two
Victory
of them.
ship or Liberty ship, which
Liberty,
transports, yeah.
Victory, I think, was a better one of the two. But down there, we loaded on the Mediterranean side of France.
So you went down to Marseille then, or someplace?
Marseille, yes, that's where it was. And then we went around the Rock of Gibraltar and out. Just as we were ready to get into this, into the ocean part, the commander or whoever it is from the ship made an announcement that there was a storm coming. He says, I'll do whatever you fellows want to do. He says, you want to take off and see if we can beat it, or you want to stay here and wait until it goes over? Everybody yelled, go. And he explained that he thought if we could get started in time, we could beat it. And we did.
Well, good.
But it wasn't too bad of a ride home. A lot better than the one going over.
All right. And then where did they land you in the States?
He's right back in Boston.
Back to Boston again. Okay.
In fact, it was cold.
Mm-hmm.
That ship was just, the deck, you couldn't walk on it because the water splashed up there and it just froze.
Just turns to ice, yeah.
Probably 4 to 5 inches of ice on
Wow.
that thing. We finally got out, and then they took us back into where they fed us, and they had gallons of milk sitting on the table. And I bet you they were only about 2 feet apart. And they were all gone when we got because we had drinking dry milk and getting a good dose of milk. It was a lot different. But those things, those tables, but almost as long as a football field.
Oh yeah, because that was because the end of '45, you're getting a lot of guys coming back from Europe at that time, and so they had pretty big operations just to process you guys and get you all sent home.
And when we got down into Camp Atterbury, I called my brother from Boston, and I said, I don't know when we'll be there, but we'll be in Camp Atterbury.
That's down in Indiana, right?
Down in Indianapolis, down in that area. And I said, if I call you before, I said, would you come down and pick us up? He says, it's going to be Christmas time. And I says, I know we won't get a bus or anything out of here. So he says, yeah. He says, I'll come down after you. He says, I can bring your girlfriend. I said, leave her home. I says, there's going to be 5 of us fellows, and he was going to bring his wife.
Right.
There'd have been 8 of us in that car. I said, no. I said, we're home. I says, after we get there, we'll be all day. So he says, okay. He says, she's not going to like it. I says, well, that's tough. I said, that's the only way these guys are going to be home for Christmas.
So you had a group of guys who were all pretty much from
Grand Rapids.
From Grand Rapids.
There was I don't know, there must have been 15, 20 of us from just Grand Rapids, and then there was a bunch from Detroit.
And these were all guys who served in different units, but they're all coming together in Camp Atterbury?
They were all in our outfit.
Okay, so you actually had guys in your outfit that you knew, that you served with?
I didn't know them because they were from different parts. I was from the East, and these guys some of them went to Lee High School. And after I was talking to my wife, well, she knew some of these guys before her brother played tennis.
Rapids then, right before Christmas.
Yeah.
All right. Now, how long after that was it that you got married?
I got home the day before Christmas, and we were married January 30th.
Okay. Now, what kind of work did you go in at that point?
I worked at a lumber company. I had worked there before I went in service. I actually, with my service time and that, I had 27 years in there. As I started in 1939, and when they closed, I went to work for U.S. Plywood, driving high-low. Those 2 jobs, the only ones I had outside of working around on the farms around home.
Now, to look back on the whole thing now, how do you think that your time in the Army affected you? Either in terms of your career, just who you are, or how your life went?
Well, I don't think it changed my life too much. Of course, we would have been married.
Yeah. Slowed you down a little.
Earlier. Yeah, it slowed some down. But it was a good experience, I think. In fact, I've said since then that I think that these kids getting out of school, if they're not going to go to college, wouldn't hurt them a bit to serve
Mm-hmm.
maybe a couple of years in the Army.
Well, a lot of countries do that.
And at least 2.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe they would even carry on.
Mm-hmm.
But
What do you think they would get out of being in the service?
discipline.
Mm-hmm.
They wouldn't be nearly as rowdy as they are now. This bunch coming up now, I don't know what they're thinking.
I think that's usually what we say about kids.
But I can't say that it would stop drugs.
Mm-hmm.
But they say there's more drugs in the Army and Navy now than there is in the public. I've heard that. But I don't know. I couldn't prove it. I've never been on either one of those. So
Mm-hmm.
used to do a little drinking, but just like in the Army there, we never got drunk or anything, but we had our drinks.
Sure.
I never had a can of beer until I got out of service.
Mm-hmm.
This guys got together when we got out. We said, let's go to Comstock Park next week. I don't know what. We
Mhm.
set up a date. Then the joint that we went to, all they served was beer and wine. So
Mhm.
I had never had a beer in my life before.
Mhm.
And my wife, well, she was just my girlfriend then. She decided that she wanted to go with us, so she took off from work. And
Mhm.
she was the only girl there, but she knew most of the other guys that were going to be there. So we had a good time. Nobody got drunk or anything. But that was my first experience with beer. It wasn't bad. It didn't hurt me any.
Oh.
But,
I've seen quite a few things when you're in Europe anyway, or at least what they were producing, the wines and the rest of it.
yeah.
Okay.
We-
Are there, is there anything else you kind of left out of the story or you want to get on the record here before we close out the interview?
Just that I still think that these kids getting out of school
Mm-hmm.
should be put in the Army or Navy or someplace like that. Maybe they'd even go on
Mm-hmm.
if they liked it. That it would sure give them the discipline that
Right.
they need. They
Mhm.
don't get it in the schools.
Mm-hmm.
And a civilian can't do anything to them
Mm-hmm.
without getting put in jail themselves. If they try to correct them, well,
All right.
you know how that goes.
Right. All right. Well, thank you very much for taking the time to talk to us today.
I'm more than happy to do it. I enjoyed it, and
All right.
I hope it turns out the way you wanted it to.
We'll see. Okay, well, thank you.
I had trouble sleeping last night.
Mm-hmm.
I was